Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Sleeping Warrior. We've also got Eli somewhere, and we've also got Refracted Curvature somewhere. They've obviously dropped while I was doing the intro. Also, a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Strawman!
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Hey, good afternoon.
Back in the day, I did performance art training when I was at college, and one of the things you'd get in a lot of trouble for would be what's called an in-joke. Now, strictly speaking, when we go live, the live audience is not privy to the conversation that we've just been having, Neil. So they don't know what that means, which always means whenever I hear what I call an in-joke, I have to qualify it before the housekeeping to the audience, because otherwise they hear you going, Strawman, and they don't know what you're talking about. So,
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I don't mind. So before the show started, a flat earther basically explained that he would like to describe the world as a realm, and when we describe it as flat based on the topology, it isn't. And what would we give as our justification? The question then followed, what would you call Earth? How would you describe it? What's being described when you talk about Earth? My answer being terra firma, the ground we're standing on, etc., etc. Anyway, that descended into rather a large row, which went nowhere for no reason, and I asked towards the end of it, what's the conclusion to all of this? What's the point? And the answer I got was, strawman. So the response to me asking what the conclusion is was to assert that I'm using a straw man by asking that question, which then ended in a humiliating dissection of the claim of straw man and how it wasn't being used and how the person claiming it didn't understand what it meant, etc., etc. That's why Neil shouted straw man right at the beginning of the live show, leading me to that relatively concise summary of what happened in the pre-show. Subscribe to my second channel if you do want to watch the pre and after show. It comes out 2 or 3 days after the live show finishes. Or become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member if you want to watch it as soon as it's been recorded, and it goes out immediately to members. So there you go. You can see that if you're a member as soon as this is recorded and done and dusted. Anyway.
May I interject? Hey, Armin.
Hey, Arwin. Hey, Refracted, technically speaking. How you doing?
I would say the last statement I'll leave to the audience when they listen to what they missed in the pre-show, but nothing happens for no reason.
Oh God, no, don't let it say it's happened. Have the conspiratards got to you, 10th?
No, this is just life's experience for me. When something happens, to ascribe it for no reason is not true. It happened. You may not know the reason. You may find out 6 months later, but there was a reason for it happening. And you said it happened for no reason. I'm just stating that, no, there was a reason.
Have you been watching much of John Le Bon by any chance? Big fan of Sync?
No, don't watch anything like that.
Okay. Shout out to all the Sync fans out there. I don't know if I buy it. There we go. Good more power to you. And what 10th Man's saying is along those lines. I'm sure it's all.
Well, no, what do you mean what I'm
God's.
saying is along those lines? What I'm saying has to do with human nature. So, people say things. You may not find out exactly why at the moment, but there was a reason for them saying things.
Reason for everything once spoken. That's right.
He
Okay.
came
Say
in.
things for nothing.
Okay.
He came in hot and ready for a fight. That was
Okay.
obvious.
Would it not be wise to just apply a bit of empathy and say, why might he be in such a distressed or seemingly triggered mood over this?
You saw that I did that. I said start over. I tried
I'm doing
to
it.
give the guy.
You've asked me to. I'm doing it, and you're saying that's what I've said you should do. Yeah. Thanks. I realise that, 10th. I'm doing it. Okay.
No, not you. Not you. When they got to stalemate the first go around, I said, look, why don't you start over? I applied empathy, and he still was the jerk he was.
Okay.
What are you talking about? Sorry for interrupting.
Don't make me summarise it again, God.
No, Brian, just
Let me just get to the conclusion.
Let me
This
do
is
it.
going to descend into the weeds pretty quick if I don't take control. Sorry, 10th. I'm just going to have to.
What happened, Nathan?
Just shush, Arwin. God, you're not helping. This is not a good start to a live show. Right. Okay, let's just try and exercise the empathy 10th man tried to in the pre-show and is suggesting we should do now, and say the following. Obviously, there's a concern for the description of Earth being flat when a lot of the people I perceive in this community having that opinion based on faith, as opposed to stone cold proof that leaves them beyond all doubt in terms of the nature of their reality. Now, if you are in the former category, where you don't necessarily realise that what you're actually holding is a belief in flat Earth, and someone comes along and potentially puts the cat amongst the pigeons in regards to your belief about how flat the world is. Now, for me, somebody who wants to disclaim, in this case Bev, who hasn't got a mention up until now, but he's the trigger for this conversation, wants to disclaim that he wouldn't want to be called a flat earther, and his reasoning is topology. More power to you, mate. What's that? Does it change my opinion about how flat the world we are standing on is? Not at all. Yes, we have topology. The aspect that topology is measured against is the flat plane we exist upon. Earth is flat. You don't want to call it that. I don't have an issue, because I'm not exactly scared in the faith that I sit in. It's not a faith. It's not a belief. I know what I know, and some next man's opinion isn't going to have any bearing on that. But it might for the guy who was a bit triggered about it earlier. There you go. That's me expressing as much empathy as I can for somebody who's just sworn at me quite a lot.
Well done, Nathan. Yeah, good job. Covered the points too.
Should we concern ourselves? Should we, hold the flat earthers who are on the lower rungs in terms of their journey towards absolute understanding of the flat world we definitely dwell atop? Should we concern ourselves with them? Are there not many flat earthers out there with the hand-holding style channels that will give them a little cushy model to perhaps change their paradigm or give them a different way of looking at things? I think there's plenty of people out there to give people a little bit of assurance. We're not that place, though, are we? This isn't a counselling group.
No, it's not. And look, I think there's certain people out there, and early on, a lot of it started with Bev, is that they don't understand the difference between the description of an aspect and an actual positive claim that everything is flat. I mean, nobody's making that positive claim. Nobody made the claim that there wasn't topography. It's the baseline. The baseline of the world we live in is flat.
Okay, you've slightly misrepresented Bev and turned it into, for the purposes of illustration only, so I'm not saying you're wrong in doing so, you've turned it into an all or nothing fallacy, which, pushed to its extremes, that's exactly what's happening. But you've done that just to illustrate the point, and in so doing, I'm going to highlight that so that you don't get accused of misrepresenting Bev's position.
No worries.
I feel so guilty about this.
Ah, tell us more.
I think somehow it might be my fault, all of this. I think my words were misinterpreted by my own side. What I've said is that Earth is a solid, water is a liquid. The Earth is what contains the oceans. So the surface of the oceans obviously are flat. And obviously, the message didn't come quite clear. We live on a flat world.
We definitely don't live on a globe. That's for certain.
Yeah, the surface isn't curving away. Again, we covered this in the pre-show. Shout out to Sensual Goat. He's, I might as well plug him for what he is. He's the guy that went out with the Flyers, lest we forget. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. He says, a great big thanks to everyone here. I appreciate you all. I appreciate you too. Thank you very much for the super chat. Also, I believe Sensual Goat was the first person to give me a super thanks, which is something that, as soon as I saw it, I thought, what a great idea. I can e-beg all day long without doing anything, because there's a button on all the videos all the time where you can just give me money. Isn't that a great idea? I thought to myself, when can I have this facility? And I've been looking every week periodically, when am I going to get it? When am I going to get it? And then, by coincidence, having not checked for 2 or 3 days, another YouTuber who was of a similar size to me noted that they've got super thanks. So I thought, they've opened it to everybody now. Presumably, if you're a YouTuber with over 1,000 subs and you've got monetization enabled, you can just go and switch it on also. I assume they've rolled it out to everybody. But yeah, it means you can technically beg all day long, which I'm very pleased about, as that's how I run my channel, and that's how I manage to make a living here. Shout out to Uncool Ben also for joining as a member. He says, hi, I got this for free. Ooh, did you really? Excellent. Got free membership out of YouTube. Thank you very much indeed, YouTube and Uncool Ben. Should we do a bit of housekeeping, or was there anything else to cover in pre-housekeeping?
Well, I was just going to address the knowing versus believing in this conversation.
That would be a perfect
Pointing out,
conclusion,
like,
John. Yes, definitely, please do so.
Right. Well, knowing the Earth isn't a sphere isn't exactly knowing what it is. You can know something's not something without knowing what it is. And a lot of people are in that boat. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it just makes...
because there is diddly squat expectation to prove what it is. You just need to prove what it's not. So we don't have to prove whether it's flat. Is it what without form? We don't know, but we do know that water's not curving.
Right. Well, but to claim it's flat, right? You know that. You make that claim, you need to know that. And that's an important distinction to make. Debunking the globe and proving flat Earth are not the same thing.
Indeed. The distinction comes between, for example, the black swan argument versus the elevation angle argument. One is a positive claim by us, utilising a well-established method of navigation. That's our positive assertion. Based on the requirement for a flat Earth, if performing celestial navigation, Earth is flat. There's our positive claim. If you're on the opponent's side, you have to challenge that by showing how celestial navigation doesn't and isn't utilising a flat plane in order to be performed. You won't be doing that. Nevertheless, that's our positive claim. By contrast to in modus tollens with the black swan, it makes it overtly stated from the off that it's the challenge to the positive globe claim. If the Earth is a sphere radius 3959, that's a positive claim from their side that we are challenging in the modus tollens argument. So therefore, there's two very different positions. Debunking a globe is debunking their positive claim. So Anthony said you've got to prove it's not true. Nah, not a great phraseology. Just disprove that it's true when they make the positive assertion. And we have the positive assertion now also. To my knowledge, with the exception of things like the sea sparrow, we didn't have that many positive claims of flat Earth until now. Am I wrong?
Well, like Anthony said, it wasn't truly necessary. It's just a nice thing to have. It's a powerful position to have.
Exactly. It strengthens the position, but I was in no way under the misapprehension that proof would be acquired for a curving Earth. So it only takes one logical step beyond most arguments to get to flat Earth. And once you've done that 50, 100 times, you're quite confident in your conclusions. In other words, it stops being a I believe situation and it's really only this way because it can't be any other way. But then when you get to the further to that, how can you turn that into a positive assertion when you need something like celestial navigation, long established with flat baselines and angles being made within the process, angles that aren't achievable if your baseline's curved? Ergo, proof of flat Earth and capable of being used in a positive assertion. Earth is flat, it can't be any other way, otherwise you wouldn't be able to get an angle from it. Not to it, from it. Right, let's burst into housekeeping on that note. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline? Also, shout out to Michael Kahn, who says he got me too, presumably means I got free memberships. Seems like YouTube are promoting me at the moment. Maybe those views weren't as distorted as we thought.
The answer is no. It wouldn't be an angle, and it wouldn't be elevation either.
There you go. There's our positive claim. Anybody watching, if you didn't realise it, there it is. Earth is flat. It's observed to be flat. It's measured flat. It's navigated flat. Obviously, observably, navigatably, and measurably flat. Any evidence?
I was wondering.
Go on.
I was going to ask if the Globers could get an angle to the surface since they refracted their geometry.
No, that's the. I like that you dropped that in there because that typically only comes from the opponents. There's John showing his exemplary understanding of not only globe and not only flat Earth debunking of globe and flat Earth positive claims, but the nonsensical rebuttals from anti-flat earthers that come following that. That's correct. Further to the black swan, how are you going to get a straight line to the surface that you assume is curved if all lines are always perceived to be bent? Speaking of not getting a straight line tangent point to a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as Earth curve, any evidence of Earth curve? That would be the tangent point with a straight line to it that John was describing earlier. It used to block boats and buildings and stuff. Boats used to fall over it. Shout out to Godzilla37 for the super chat. Not missing any super chats this time with my new monitor, Godzilla. Happy days. They are not free memberships. Okay. The members get a free super chat once a month, just to clear that up. Oh, okay. Cool. Also, good morning. Good morning to you, Godzilla. I take it we're moving on from that housekeeping question then. No further comments on Earth curve.
No, there isn't. You can't have O curve. If there was O curve, if the Earth was curved, we would have found out in 2015. It's not. That's it.
So that's it then. It's pointless to speak about anything else. If there is no curvature, there is no globe.
Don't be so hasty. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
You're going to need that.
Yeah, and you're going to need a straight line to a geometric physical sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, to get it. Or you're going to need elevation angle measurements to Polaris off a flat plane to get it. It's not looking good for the globe. It's got to be said.
What globe?
The model that they claim was the projection.
Oh, the model. Okay. Yeah, the model is there. Seen it all over the place. Stores and classrooms, but no evidence for it.
That's not a model. That's a globe. Do you have evidence of this model? Can I see this model?
No, it's not a scientific model.
Say that again,
the globe
Brian.
measures to be flat.
Oh, sorry, Jorge. Say again, Brian.
It's not a scientific model, which is what they are claiming.
Right, but still a model. Thank you to you, Adam, Eli, Arwin, I think Neil was there as well, yesterday, for going through your thoughts in regards to this. So when we reference the celestial sphere model, it's the application of the angle measurement that you take in physical reality. And there's a discussion currently in regards to the physicality of the line to the horizon in terms of once corrected, if it's geometric, I'm choosing my words carefully in case you can't tell, versus the application of an angle, which is always two straight lines, and how it best works when translated into the celestial sphere model, which has ultimately been hijacked and turned into a protractor that you're holding and calling that protractor the surface of the Earth. But that aside, there's an internal discussion currently going on, which I'm hoping this conversation will open up to the audience, which I was privy to. So I didn't know it was going on until yesterday. I was invited to listen in on the conversation. Fascinating stuff. And at one point I was asked my opinion. I'm like, I get this stuff from you. Why are you asking me? But there we go. It was a fascinating conversation. But yeah, just not a disagreement, but just an internal wrangle-dangle, if you will, in terms of a perception of how models are being applied with the angles and how you can term that in terms of geometric measurements of the very beautiful Earth that we dwell atop. Fascinating conversations that I'm privileged to. Thank you very much to all of those who invited me along yesterday.
That's still ongoing, Nathan. We didn't come to a conclusion. Well, I've come to my conclusion, but other people are not in agreement. So
yeah, I just left at some point because it's never going to end. It was like 8 o'clock at the evening.
Hold on, I missed everything.
I said Neil, I meant 10th. It's nothing particularly important. It's just when you're coming to application of real world measurements and then the use of a model and the use of the ephemeris, you're talking about a fine line between describing how you're actually going to apply something that's been modelled into your physical reality to find your position versus translation of that measurement into what you claim is your reality when describing the model. Now, that's go on.
It also speaks to what a measurement is a lot of the argument. Because a measurement is when you take a conceptual quantification and apply it to an aspect of reality.
Indeed. So when you describe the length of a football field, that length isn't the field, basically, just so people understand what John's saying.
I'd have to disagree, Nathan, on when you said it's not extremely important. It is absolutely extremely important.
Yeah, it's critical. We had a big row about this. If anybody's been a long-standing viewer, or at least for the last couple of years, you'll vaguely remember Brian and me initially, and then a few others piled in with a lot of passion from Brian about this very subject quite a while ago. And that has gone underground, if you will. It hasn't surfaced on the show, but has very much been discussed ever since because of the level of importance. And I don't want to downplay that, Brian, but I'm being very tentative because of the passion level that I know is surrounding this. And it's important stuff. We are, at this point, branching beyond debunking stupid nonsense about sky vacuums and curved Earth and I don't know, planets and I don't know, space travel. We've gone beyond that, and we're now actually talking about stuff that's much more exciting, much more real, much more tangible. And while that's going on, there is descriptions of models in there. So there's certain referees, if you want, Adam, 10th, and a couple of others, John, who are going to be like, hang on, I see an objection to how this is being described. And we're just talking about semantics here. We're literally talking about the verbalization of these concepts. But that's important when we know from experience that we've been duped and therefore doubly careful when we phrase things out. You know, the housekeeping, if anyone comes along on a passing glance might think, so what, a load of questions. It's like, no, you don't understand how refined they are. Incredibly refined. And what's going on at the moment is no different, and inevitably will, I would imagine, turn into some sort of refinement of the way that we talk about this stuff. So it is critically important, and I'm, over-egging the pudding a little bit now at this point, Brian. Maybe I should hand off back to you. We'll see if we get any discussion about it, because it's still obviously no conclusions yet, so maybe not.
Well, with Adam not here, it's probably best not to, but what I would, because it wouldn't be fair, because I'd be pushing my argument without him having his opposition. Now, John might oppose me in that, fair enough, but it was Adam initially that I was having mostly me and Adam. So just because Tent, well, I can't speak for Tent, but he'd be more than likely on my side, and John would be more likely on Adam's side. So it would be not fair, because it might be a bit uneven, I don't know. But what I will say about the situation is there is two descriptions being given. I am on the side of one for very particular reasons, and that description is coming from those who used the marine sextant, mariners who used celestial navigation. The other description is an in-depth description mathematically. So there's two descriptions that are being. That's the problem. And I have an argument that one of them one of them ends up in a pre-assumption. The other one ends up in a positive claim.
Correct. One can be twisted into a pre-assumption, but at this point, neither are. Both are flat Earth. Just in case anybody's concerned, because there will be.
Well,
that's why
I'm not going to go further into it because Adam's not here. But what I would say, sorry, John.
That's why I've always said that this isn't a debate any longer if both sides agree.
Yeah, it's not a debate about the aspect of the Earth that is flat. It's more about the descriptions of how things are applied within celestial navigation, various aspects of them to the flat Earth, as opposed to, is it flat or not? No, that's not really debatable in terms of how this is going to pan out. It will eventually make it to the audience, but it's nice to know that the beginning of this is probably 18 months ago, if I'm remembering correctly, when Brian basically bit my head off, and I know why, and I know why it's important. But that was the start of it. If anybody's been following along, again, I'm kind of start off by moaning about
I'll give a summary. Well, go on, Arvin. What do you want to say?
No, don't give a summary. No, Brian's already hinted that he doesn't want this summarised, because when he said no, I can read between the lines. Let's just move on. We haven't finished housekeeping anyway, so I'm just going to abruptly draw an end to this conversation, unless Brian says otherwise, which he won't, I know.
No, thank you.
Perfect. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
I was going to say something, but now I forgot. Thanks.
You can answer the housekeeping question currently asked.
3 Arwinian units.
3 Arwinian
distance
units?
to the sun.
Don't mention that. We got very touchy yesterday when we talked about him offering.
R. It's based on R. There is no R, so there's no distance to the sun the way they have told us.
Oh, I remember what I wanted to say before we move on about the whole model thing and flat Earth proof, right? We did not derive evidence for the Earth to be flat from a model. The model came afterward for us, after the Earth was established to be flat, and it's not really relevant to the argument. It's just more data on top of it.
Right? Slight correction. Yes, you're right, but slight correction. The model came from a flat Earth, though, just to make that bit clear. We're talking about the celestial sphere model.
Yes, but we did not derive all our evidence for the Earth to be flat from some model.
No.
We figured that out separately from the model.
No, there have been measurements taken that have derived this model. The celestial sphere model is what we're talking about. It's not only our model, it's everyone's model. But if you're going to use a model of Earth, that's what it's going to be based upon. And the way that was created was by way of utilisation of angle measurements from a flat plane. That was how it was created. Now, taking it and forming it into dual radii, okay, you can turn that into a sphere, but that's a different model. But both have come from a flat Earth measurement in the first instance. Now, what Arwin's saying, and he's right, is we haven't then said, okay, once you've got the celestial plane, you've got the equatorial plane, or whatever you want to call that particular model of the heavens, you're not using that model to say it's flat when we point out that that model has been measured from a flat plane. It doesn't. We're not doing what the globers do when we hold up our model and say, therefore it's a flat plane, when they say, therefore it's a sphere. I get what you're saying.
We don't rest our case on the model. The model comes out of our case.
Correct. Or to put it more succinctly in the way that I think it was John Refracted Curvature did in the discussion yesterday, we don't reify the model.
Exactly.
So what you guys are saying is you wouldn't have a geographical north or something like that that doesn't match the other north. Like having like 3 norths in the same model. Like a magnetic north and a celestial north and then a geographical north.
And grid north.
It would stop that nonsense.
Yeah, you missed grid north.
Well, hold on. Those norths are they're model norths of a flat Earth on a celestial sphere. So it's still a flat Earth model when they talk about those 3 points.
Okay, pop quiz. How many norths are there if you want to talk about an actual position?
4. If they think it's 4, Nathan,
Actual.
could be wrong.
As
I
opposed to
agree.
North. I only know of one actual north.
Has
One.
anyone actually been to the North Pole?
No, I should have rephrased that as direction as opposed to location.
Yeah, there's only one north that exists. One that is magnetic north.
Right.
Okay, so
but
grid
have,
north,
an actual-
geographical north, magnetic north, and what do they call the actual north?
Celestial north.
Right.
Grid
And what are we
north,
talking about in
grid
terms of the
north.
celestial
Axial
sphere
north?
model?
axial
The
north?
celestial north.
Exactly.
So
Right, but
basically
I've
what
never
you have
seen
to do
even like a
is,
claim
once
like
you
here's
have-
exactly where the North
once you
Pole is.
have-
Like
Once
Where?
that you have the position of the Polaris, you just move the ground and the map and put it under the GP, and you corrected everything.
That would
Right,
imply
but-
that would imply you could back engineer it, though, wouldn't it? I don't see any reason why in moving forward that you can't back engineer it. I know Adam, when I said this to him last time, was like, no, somebody has actually done this. They came pretty close to a combined, what do they call those, like 2 discs sandwiched on top of each other with all the stars? And they're normally 2 separate ones, North and South Hemisphere. I can't remember who the guy was, but somebody...
Planisphere.
Planisphere, that's the one. Somebody did a combined planisphere. You go, well,
JC.
once you've got that and you've got the navigational stars below, you can plot out a very accurate map.
Well, it's interesting. Where Brian and Tent and me and Adam have been talking about models so much that when you're describing something to someone, how easy it is to slip into a model as the description, and then they reify that, because Globers do it all the time. I don't think it's intentional. They go into a description and they make that what they're describing, they create that model and then they make that reality.
just model addiction, right? Models are so comforting. They suggest oversight and all that. But yeah, they don't automatically become correct. You have to actually figure out the components first. And they don't like doing that.
Any,
But it's just
go on.
I just think it's models are an extremely useful way of communicating an idea, because it gives you a visible representation. It's just you have to understand what aspect that visible representation is trying to give you. You know.
Do you
So
know who
when
said?
Why
sorry,
are you
just
saying
wanna-
not all models are visual?
Sorry, just 1 second, Darwin. Your last words, John, were almost identical to what Mark Sargent said to me when I sat across from him at a conference and expressed my concern for model reification. The justification he gave was almost verbatim what you just said. That's what Mark Sargent said to me.
Well, he's obviously a smart guy. As long as you don't reify that model into reality and make a claim based on the model, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a useful tool.
Was Neil just laughing at the backhanded self-compliment?
Yes, that was great.
Well, it's a like if you think of it as a convention to communicate an idea, it's no different than using math or language.
Math is
Yeah,
language.
but then you're gonna have to find a meridian to put in the middle of your model, separating things and the times and everything else. So, just other things that you need to add more in your model, whatever model you're gonna do.
I say let's make it
but
England.
John also thinks it's useful that people think they're on a globe.
Which John?
Prove that it's not.
Oh,
Oh, you're breaking up, Neil. Prove that it is. What purpose other than total control?
Well,
That's what he's saying.
Depends on who, hold on. It depends on who has that control, and what do everyone believe that the higher echelons of government promote sociopaths? Would you not want those people contained?
Oh God, this is that conversation. Okay, this is going to trigger the panel. I can see it happening already.
Oh, it's going to go somewhere crazy in a minute.
Okay, let me just paraphrase John's position. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that the globe, as a perception, as a way of, a paradigm, is intentional. Don't get triggered if you're a Christian just don't. It's just an example. So if that's his will, God's will, then why not, having seen that 1 in 20 of the Western world are complete psychopaths, wouldn't you instill a certain level of control that stops that, like described in The Matrix by Agent Smith? You're a virus. You're just parasites. You'll just spread everywhere and fuck everything up. Unless we put something in there to control you. So from that perspective, wouldn't it make sense to have a certain degree of control and something for those who seek power and control to have control over? Like giving them a little toy to play with. Here's your ball. Go and play with that, you little monsters. That's his position. Might have over-egged that a bit. John, do you want to just tidy that up in case I did?
Oh no, that's
Matrix of delusion, right? Those that
it's not exactly. It's not exactly my position, but it is an idea that seems just as fair to me as the opposing side. So
John thinks it'll be total anarchy if people come to the conclusion that they're not in a ball. Let's face it.
That's oversimplifying it somewhat, but yes.
No, but I do agree with John a little, because the ball is, there's so much stuff there to dwell upon that it is a distraction for those that cannot distinguish lies from truth, right? So arguably the followers of Satan. If you can I finish? If you consider Satan to be lies specifically and God truth, then the ball earth is such a vast thing that it can trap people that can't tell the difference anymore, right? Which would be deviants, those that dabble in lies. Well, if you lose track of what's lies and what's truth, yeah, then the globe is a great busying therapy to keep those minds occupied and out of the way of actually causing havoc in the real world, potentially.
Any other comments on this?
So like
go on. Yeah, go ahead.
Once you break, just saying, like once you break out maybe of believing this globe, then you might have found the truth, and you're out of that that bad vibe, that evilness of control. We've all found the truth in flat Earth and found the Creator and found the way, maybe.
In the Christian religion, they in the Bible, in the New Testament, Paul says that they traded the truth for a lie. And I suppose is because even though that we're brought up to believe the lie, we're part of that trade already happened before us, didn't it?
Well, people seek out their own lies to believe in to separate themselves from oversight, from knowledge, arguably from God, at least at a small scale. So yeah, the globe model, it's all there. It's all false. It's blatantly, obviously false, but at least it's there, and it's busying therapy. It's like a mental prison for the deviants, potentially. So yeah, if you grow up in that, then they can figure out where you're at spiritually and mentally and how well you can distinguish, and then they can always choose to pull you out. Right?
Well, I have one difference with the R1 on that is I think it could be like an antagonistic presence in humanity, or it's been around since humanity, like Lucifer is described as. That's the cause of it.
So are you suggesting that it would be required to maintain balance, John?
Possibly.
I
anybody
agree.
seen-
It's a controlled opposition for deviants. Or that's what they made it for. Now, whether that is good or should be is another matter. But I think that's the reason why it came into being the way it's now.
Well, look what happens when you tell people the truth. Do you know what I mean? So, if we don't know why we're really here. We don't really know what's going on. All we know is what we think we know. We can measure some stuff and we can make spiritual claims, and that's it. Whatever's going on, it's bigger than us, and there must have been a reason why we believed we were on a globe. Maybe it was us, maybe it wasn't us, maybe it was predetermined.
No, it wasn't us.
I'm sorry, you can't measure why you're here. It has nothing to do with each other, physics and philosophy like that. And I'm pretty sure you can know why.
I don't know. I think that's the overriding question that everybody's asking, as much as you could give the Hitchhiker's Guide answer. I think most people are seeking their purpose and meaning, aren't they? Isn't that what deep reflection's all about?
Yeah, and God holds out a promise. Ask, seek, and knock, and he will answer. And that's what I did, and he answered. So I know why I'm here. I don't know about you guys. That's up between you and God. But
Exactly.
This other subject of why the globe lies, it's pretty obvious. To hide the creator, to give man the power and say you came from nothing, your life is insignificant, you have this allotted time, whatever that is, and go for the gusto, no judgment day. And the governments use that in their favor. Look at what communism has done. They go kill 60 million people in Mao Zedong's China and say it's no different than killing a chicken because there's no God, there's no judgment, there's not a real soul there. So it's to hide God, is to put atheism on the top. And the people who have come to Flat Earth, in the testimonials that go for hours on YouTube channels. Yeah, I was raised in a Christian home or a religious home. And I went to school, and when I got there, they said everything about the Holy Scriptures were wrong. There's no such thing as a worldwide flood, and science is this. And I became an atheist or an agnostic at the least. And then when I saw Flat Earth, oh my gosh, I'm crying for forgiveness. I'm back to God. So with as many as testimonies that I've seen, because I'm not in that boat, I don't feel what they feel. But they had something, it got stolen away with a lie, and then now they're back to it because it's how the truth that there had to be a creator for a flat earth, but there isn't one for a globe that burst out of some big bang that doesn't exist.
Quick shout out to Isa Maholsky, who says, secular cosmology, open brackets, the globe / Big Bang, close brackets, keeps a system of individuality. Religious control leads to tyrants. We have religious liberty and lawful protections. Peace, fiery symbol. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Isa Maholsky. Really appreciate the support.
Yo, I just wanted to say, before you shouted out the super chat, that the truth isn't stolen from us, right? The entire globe religion and the model has hints everywhere that it's incorrect. It's constantly testing your critical thinking. It's constantly doing that by its design in itself. And so it's always giving you an opportunity to be able to snap out of it, get real, and figure out what is real. So it's not a complete trap. You're not literally being enslaved. You always have the option to figure it out and to break out. But it's never a nice option, right? It's always going to be kind of miserable once you figure out it's all a lie. But it doesn't technically trap you. You can only trap yourself by your own choices.
No, I agree with you, Arvin, 100%.
Cool.
I think it's very likely the whole globe thing was given to us. I'm not saying it's definite, but it may have been given to us via the Creator. Because I don't know why the Creator does what he does, thinks what he thinks. All I know is that he's greater than me, and he's the boss, and whether I like it or not, I have to be like him. And that's that. And
I'm with you because I think that all information and all ideas we ever get comes directly from the Creator. So,
Tent, do you want to straighten this out, Tent?
Hey, hello.
Nonsense.
Oh no, not nonsense. Where are they
All
coming
ideas, let me go
Yeah.
murder someone. All ideas come from the creator. Give me a
from?
break.
Yeah, it's all part of the same information spectrum that he has created for all of us, and it includes the tests.
That's
Right?
'cause you
He
don't
gives
know
you
'em.
also the
Right,
senses.
so-
He
so-
gives
so-
you the senses to distinguish what is good and right, and then make your choice.
Thank you. Now that you've gone back to the, okay, fine. Let me finish now. So now that the creator has told us there's an arch enemy called Lucifer, and there's a fight for our souls, and that he has won our soul through Jesus Christ, that's the test from a biblical point of view. Now, if somebody else wants to come and say from another point of view it's something else, and they attribute an essence to the creator different than the Christian view, that's fine. No one's going to know, I guess, until the end, right? And so bottom line, we have an enemy of our soul. We have liars, we have psychopaths, but then we've got dear friends and nice people. So those people make choices to be good. Other people make choices to be bad. And at the end, they'll all be shaken out.
Right, but that doesn't take away that all ideas ever all come from God. All of them.
No,
Yes.
God can,
No,
no.
yes. Yes.
Let me
No,
finish.
You're separating. You're
Let me answer
categorizing
it.
in two
Let me
different
answer it.
things in a single spectrum.
Let me answer it. Gosh, you just overtalk when I'm ready to answer it. God cannot do evil, so that doesn't come from God. He allows it to exist because there's a choice to be made because we fell in the garden. From a biblical point of view, it makes a total sense. If you're going to say everything comes from God, then that means the rape, the murder, everything is God-driven. No, it's not. It's satanic.
Driven? I'm not talking about that drive. That drive is choice.
not
That's what you
saying
do
that.
with it. No, but God definitely does send us tests. So he is the arbiter and creator of all information.
up.
You shut up. I'm arguing with you and you're rumpusing right through me.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Driven? Why are you taking my word driven and making something I never meant about it?
I'll take that as a no.
Declaring.
The apple fell off.
No, that's how you interpreted it.
Isn't
You're
this what
saying
this is
nothing
all
bad
about?
comes from him, but it does. And I just said, you literally said, yeah, it does. He tests us. Oh, so, but it's not coming from him, but he tests us. He tests us with evil, but it's not coming from him. Okay,
No, he
thank
didn't
you.
create evil. There's something called free choice.
Yeah, I know. That doesn't mean that's a choice, right? That doesn't mean that no evil
Free
comes
choice is
from
not a
God.
choice.
It does come
Free
from
choice
him.
is
He
not a
designed
choice.
it for us to test us.
So God can make robots and disallow free choice and no one would sin. Or God can make us free agents and there is a choice, either God or whatever your desires are, evil or good, and you sin. And so that separates you from God because God is holy and perfect. And so it's laid out.
That's a red herring. It has nothing to do
No,
with each other.
You know,
You're talking about man. You're not talking about the source of the information. You're not addressing it at all.
I am talking about the source of information. I'm talking about
You're
God.
talking about man's choice. That's not the source of the information. That's man dealing with the information.
How is it that you take something as simple as I do and already take it to somewhere where I didn't even take it? You are having your own conversation with my words, debating yourself. You're not debating me.
Yeah, you're red herring the argument. So I have to take over for you because this is all very sensitive to you and you get very triggered every time I do any of this.
Look who sounds triggered. You, not me. I rest my
You're
case
the
in the
one
word of
red
God.
herring me and rumpusing over me loud-voiced. Thanks.
Projection. You're the one misquoting
Yes,
me.
it's all you. You. Oh, yes, 10th man.
I really feel sorry for you.
No evidence, imagine, no.
Really feel sorry for you, Arwen.
This is about
And you're a
interpretation.
horrible
natural
debater and
phenomenon.
extremely biased.
I'm not
Just
debating.
stop,
I'm
stop,
stating.
guys.
I'm not debating.
Hello, just stop, please. I think John wants to get a word in terms of how productive this was. Go ahead, John.
This comes down to interpretation of it's not going to be able to be settled like this. I say we move on, and because just table it for another time. I ain't saying y'all have to stop talking about it. Just there's no conclusion since it's down to interpretation.
Everyone happy? Happy to move
I'm
on?
fine with it. I'm just stating what the Bible says and leaving it there and let people interpret it as they like.
God is not the
Yeah, and I
author
do.
of
And then you rumpus me over it.
Okay,
Tell me
that's
I wrote.
Arwen, go grab
Field
your teddy
format.
bear.
Okay. That sounds like there's nothing else to discuss. I did actually ask during the conversation, but only for comedic effect. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
What's the phenomenon?
But that's the problem, isn't it? If they want to scientifically prove gravity, they know that they will disprove it. They will get annulled. So they never did. They never tried to scientifically prove it because they know that they will end up with a null.
Is that why they only test? Is that why they only test the opposing ideas to gravity, so that when they verify the null of that test, then they can claim that gravity wins out? Is that what that's about?
That sounds about right, doesn't it? Yes. If the null
it's
is
testing the null.
Yeah, you don't directly test the null, but if that's a sneaky way of doing it, isn't it? I knew that was the case, but I'd never really realised the implications until you just said it. Why would it be that way round? Well, because you can, typically speaking, I was explaining this to Dave Weiss literally only the other day, you'll normally get a null result. Now, what distinguishes the guy who's a genius from the guy who can just piss in the wind and think of an idea that might cause an effect? Well, the genius is getting it right. Now, most of the time, you won't get it right. Now, when I discussed this with QE, he gave a qualifier, which I'll drop in here, which is to say, actually, strictly no. If you're a real scientist, there's a good chance that you've been dedicating your life to a certain research field that will lead you to an educated guess about the cause of the effect when you formulate the hypothesis. So it's not strictly true to say, no, when you're actually doing the method of science, you're not going to have the vaguest clue unless you're a genius, because there's going to be a whole team of people doing research to try and get you to that point where you've got at least a vague idea what's going to cause the effect before you start varying it to see if it does. However, if you expand that out beyond science and to every other Muppet that claims science ever, Timotei adverts and Michelin tyres included, then you can expand it out to make my example work rather than focusing on the actual science of science, and say when people use the word science and think they're going to be performing an experiment, what distinguishes the geniuses from the idiots? Well, actually being able to suppose the cause and verify it and cause it, which is to say that most of the time you'll get it wrong. Most of the time when you suppose a cause of an effect that you've observed in nature, you'll verify the null. Now that's still empirical proof. A didn't cause B. You supposed A would cause B and it didn't. But if you can use that almost certain to happen unless you're a genius and have done a lot of research result into I've proven my null and my null is the assumption or the contrast to the assumption of gravity, then you're onto a winner proving it with a null. Even though that's not the purpose. You're trying to prove the cause, not validate the null. So yeah, absolutely, John. That slipped me by. I love it. Sneaky sods, aren't they?
They also attach another housekeeping question to the begging the question of gravity with a list of claims, which is they will need two containers, a vacuum and a balloon with helium, to demonstrate not only the balloon going down, not the gas obviously, but the balloon going down in a vacuum, but also claiming that the gases will go down, which is a nonsensical thing. So you will need, even for that claim, you will need 3 containers at least, and still the gases, they're not attracted by this non-force.
That gets you up to about 107 years ago. You missed out orbital motion. There's a whole string of them, actually. Brian would probably rattle them off if I asked him to.
Well, I was going to say that they never tested gravity on. They never tested the speed a helium balloon goes down in Mercury, because that would destroy them. Because the helium balloon not only won't go down, but even if it wasn't helium and it would go down, it wouldn't go down to Mercury. So it destroys them straight away. Relative density, all proven. You know, they never did that. Why didn't they do it? Because it was destructive to what they believe. All they have is a belief. That's why they don't have scientific evidence.
Scientific evidence being a validated alternative hypothesis, which is what you're trying to achieve. So what is scientific evidence? Well, it's the assertion of a cause based on the actualization of a hypothesis, aka an experiment. So a validated experiment where you varied A and caused B. That is scientific evidence. In other words, empirically validated cause and effect relationships established through experiment. That's scientific evidence.
Well, in that case, the answer
there
is no.
There is none for gravity, is there? I mean, nobody can bullet point the step one to step whatever of the scientific procedure for gravity because it's never been proved scientifically in the first place.
Precisely. So to concisely summarise what Wandek has just put into words, there is no scientific evidence for gravity. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Negative, and there never will be.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, go on.
Well, if you're a heliocentrist, they never will be. If you qualify it like that, then yeah. But you don't know if the paradigm shifts.
No.
Okay, well, let's go through them. Cosmology. Are you saying that's non-heliocentric?
Right. The idea of cosmology, what is it?
Study of the cosmos.
Mathematics.
And what is the cosmos?
How I would define it or how they would define it. That's what I'm asking.
Exactly.
Mathematics again?
That's what I'm saying. If they're heliocentrists, then they'll never be able to formulate a valid hypothesis.
But for you to be a successful cosmologist, ipso facto, you must be a heliocentrist. You can't not be.
Right. But that doesn't mean that'll always be the paradigm either.
It doesn't mean it will always be the case in the future, but that's an appeal to the future fallacy in terms of the answer to the question, because you're going to have to beg the question. This is normally your point, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
For
but I'm
all
not
of the
making the
fields.
claim.
Say again,
I'm not making the claim that it never will happen. I'm just saying.
I'm making a claim. You're not going to vary and manipulate any star, moon, or sun. It's over.
Oh, whoa. Why not? Hold on. Wow. I try to piss on my bonfire when it comes to the aspirations of what we may achieve into the future. The world's your oyster. Just because it's never been moved, it's never been changed, doesn't mean that you can't vary and manipulate something to cause that effect. That's a phenomena.
How are you going to do that?
I don't know. I'm not the genius that's going to figure out why the sky is what it is. Why is it blue? I don't know. I'm not going to figure that out either, probably. But I'd like to know, and I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility to find out. What I do know is, without knowing, people have ascribed a just so story to it, and that just so story might leave you with a tarnished impression that you will never be able to figure it out. Well, okay. Now, I'm not decrying anybody who says, no, you won't. God says it's made that way, and you'll never know. Okay, that's fair enough. A bit defeatist. Sorry, that's besmirching all religion.
We can't manipulate the sun and stuff. If we start messing with any of that, even if we could, we should never do it, because we might mess up the cycle the sun has, and the cycle the stars have. We don't even know what relevance to our natural world here on the Earth that the movement of the stars has. So if we mess with their timing, or we mess with the moon's timing, or we mess with the sun's timing especially, we could have a catastrophe.
You just compound two different... Hold on. Brian's just compound two different things together, which frustrates me. Number one, you started by saying we couldn't do it. And number two, you went on to say that if we could, it wouldn't be a good idea to. Number two, I agree to. But I dislike the idea of saying that we can't do something equally as much as somebody saying we can or we have when they describe distances to gases in sky vacuums or whatever. You know, the contrast is equally bad to my brain. It makes me shudder just as much as maybe you can hear it. We can't.
Okay.
Why not?
Okay. So can Mario come out of the game? All right? Luigi come out of the game and do anything? No, he cannot.
False equivalent.
No, it's not a false equivalence. The only one that's going to shake the heavens is God himself.
Yeah, I did put that disclaimer in for the Christians that may oppose me based on their faith.
Well, let's hope he never gets his leg
to vary and manipulate it.
Right, you've been told you can't, and we won't, And the Bible agrees with that sentiment. Me, I don't like that attitude. It is just as offensive to me as somebody saying we have when they haven't. We can't because you haven't yet doesn't mean you can't. You don't know you can't. You can't prove you can't. You just know that you haven't and no one has to date. But my appeal to the future, maybe they have, and you just don't know about it. It's a big conspiracy. I could do that. I'm not going to. I'm just saying to say you can't is a very bold statement. Well, I don't feel you will ever justify to me that you know you can't. In the same way as much as QE would disagree with me on this score, when it's the case that people say the natural laws, we'll never know the cause of them. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got into long conversations with people far more educated than I about why that may be the case. Still leaves a nasty taste in my mouth. Don't know what to say, I'm just saying it like it is.
So, in 1969, they went to the moon, but now they can't do anything since. You're not going to space. It's done.
No. That wasn't ever
didn't actually go, you
false
know?
equivalence. No. Not going to what they describe as space is akin to saying that you can go to Narnia, and Narnia is now going to be juxtaposed with the sky vacuum, and then you saying, well, you can't get to Narnia. Well, no, but we do have stars. They do form motions and do things. Now, that isn't to say that something might be capable of varying and manipulating them. You don't know that you can't, just because it hasn't been achieved yet. Likewise, you don't know that you won't figure out the cause of entropy. It seems unlikely. You'd have to go to the beginning of time, which is impossible, but to figure out the start of where it all began. Now, I understand the logic behind it. I'm just saying that when people say they can't do something, like give the cause of entropy, just to take it away from the current discussion, then that leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. Okay? It seems like we can't, but who's trying to say that they've failed and why they've failed? Because they might eventually succeed in finding the cause of entropy. I just don't like the glass half empty, we'll never know attitude. That's all. I'm an optimist.
It's like the sun, just talking about the sun, though. We might not know what it is or how far away it is, but we do know it's a measurement of our time. It gives us our seasons. It's a giver of life and also a taker of life. And that's what we do know.
So
hey, 6,000 years and nothing's been done. Good luck, Nathan.
So if you...
Well, no, that's why I put the qualifier on it, Neil. And I said if you're a heliocentrist, you never will.
Exactly. You'll never manipulate the gas lamp in Narnia, because it isn't real. Likewise, a burning ball of gas in a sky vacuum when describing the sun in the sky isn't real either. So you'll never be able to verify and vary that. However, to assert to me, because your religion states that it's been that way for 6,000 years or whatever you describe, doesn't take away the nasty taste in my mouth. Okay, to date, nobody's been capable of varying and manipulating a cause of the phenomena we call the sun. Does it mean we can't? I'm not going to say that, but you are very determined in your...
Okay, Nimrod, build your tower.
Nobody's backing me up in this, I can see it. No, it's stony silence from people who don't agree. Okay, fine.
What?
I understand what you're saying, Nathan. I don't really see how we could ever be, how we would ever be allowed the knowledge to get to the point of being able to vary and manipulate the sun, moon, and stars. I think that kind of knowledge would be kept from us for our own safety. But that doesn't mean that I can make the positive statement that it could never happen.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I was looking for. Is it was Brian that said it initially? Yeah, exactly, Brian. Thank you.
Right. We could potentially figure it out ourselves, or even stumble upon it by accident somehow. We don't know.
Better men have tried and failed.
No, how do you know that better?
Yeah, so what?
Nimrod built a tower.
And Icarus.
That's an appeal to the past
maybe
fallacy.
we don't need to build a tower to do
Hold
it.
on. That's an appeal to the past fallacy.
Shouldn't we have historic standards being employed at this point?
No, I mean, it doesn't matter even if it is true history.
Radio.
It's an appeal to the
radio
past.
technology now, right? Big difference. I don't think there was ever radio communication technology in the past. We can even use that stuff now to like fry things at a distance. Okay, so if we can do that, why would you assume that we wouldn't be able to figure out somehow how to manipulate the celestial light effects?
Never gonna happen.
Never. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you know that, Prophet.
Exactly. With that heated discussion in tow, we're going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, however, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. But if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. There's also a super thanks button that now appears below these videos if you want to thank me and the show, so to speak, for the material. Then you can smash the super thanks button. Thanks in advance to anybody who does. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching a Lead the Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!